Today is April 13th. We have Matthew Gorzlancyk on the podcast. Decky Long Distance, how are we?
We're doing great, Andy Fresh Shave. Gorzlancyk, what a pronunciation on your end. I hope that was right. I know we're recording this intro to Matthew before we actually record, and wow, I think you nailed his last name. I hope we'll have to do some clarification when we get into the podcast, but damn, dude, I like what you did there.
That was a shot in the dark. We got challenged by Emma Sievers to have Matthew on the podcast, and we followed through relatively quickly because she told us that he walked from Wisconsin to Argentina. And when we heard that, this is a no-brainer to have Matthew on the show. We know nothing really about him. I talked to him on the phone earlier today, make sure technology was all dialed in, and he's got a couple blog posts, but we've never met him, and we're stoked to have a 2-hour conversation with this man and unpack his story.
Totally, man. And I think these are always, really fun. These podcasts where you bring in someone you don't really know, and they come in as strangers, they leave as friends. So we're very excited to welcome Matthew Gorzlancyk. Might be Gorzlancyk. We'll find out in a moment.
All right, Matt, welcome to the Backpocket podcast. I got to ask real quick, do you pronounce your last name Gorzlancyk?
All done. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
I have to be frank with you and transparent. I have butchered so many last names on this podcast. We've done 306 of these, and I'm due for a good one. So I'm pumped that Gorzlancyk, I worked through that one. This is a great start to the episode.
It was really good.
How you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. And how are you fellas?
Oh, we're happy to have you. We're happy to sit down, share a drink, and just have a conversation. Salud.
Salud. But yeah, Matt.
Thanks for having me on.
Salud to you too, man. And I always say when people ask how you doing, no matter the situation, we were just talking off air about a math mistake I made because I was trying to multitask as a male, which I don't think. I'm gonna throw this take out there right away. Like, males cannot multitask. Like, our brains just aren't meant for it. So like, I was multitasking. I was talking to Sophie of Straight Candid at the same time I was trying to do math problems at work, and I made a math mistake and almost cost my company a lot of money. But nonetheless, if you were to ask me in that situation, hey Declan, how you doing? I would always say, no matter what, I'm always living the dream, man. And hearing the name Matthew Gorzlancyk, and you should have him on the podcast from a couple episodes ago, Emma Sievers, and just your story. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have lived the dream up until this point. And, dude, I'm stoked to talk to you, man. And I just got to say, compliment you on that mustache. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really difficult to cater. But, yeah, I'm with you. I'm living the dream. I always like the idea of, like, just saying unbelievable or incredible, but unbelievable because it could be either. You just say it with a little exuberance, and people are just like, oh, what's going on? What are you doing, man? And just trying to be a lighthouse no matter what, I think, is a very functional thing. That's for sure.
Yes.
Like, being the positive light around is a very good way of going about things. Living the dream.
Amen to that. Yeah. And maintaining a positive light and doing so while walking from Wisconsin to Argentina. So that's how we led you into this
biking.
Yeah.
Biking. Correct.
Yeah.
You biked from Wisconsin to Argentina. You're not cheating by any means in that regard. We led you in that way, and that's the basis of what we know about you, Matt. Like Deck mentioned, Emma Sievers challenged us to have you on, and that was the quick background she gave us, and that's all she needed to say. We were stoked when she mentioned that, so I think we should start there. When did you bike from Wisconsin to Argentina?
So I finished college in 2010. A little non-traditionally, I was 26. July. So I think I ended up leaving on like the 1st. July. Well, I sold all my stuff after college, most everything, and then I some stuff I put into storage. I had originally anticipated maybe going to law school or something, and as I neared graduation, I was a history and political science major, and I had always worked a lot with a lot of Latinos in the restaurants that I'd worked in, and Latin American history was like my focus, and I couldn't speak the language, other than like awesome restaurant terms, like the kind of naughty stuff. So I had a really good, good background as to what I was going to use when I finally made it to Mexico. But I decided I wanted to go to Latin America and travel when I finished college, and I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do it in a very authentic way, in the most authentic way I could, and I didn't have a lot of money. I traded a little bit during that year, and I had some good trades while I was sitting in college with my Palm Pilot, an early iteration of the smartphone. It was crappy, but like I was able to make some things happen buying Chipotle and stuff. So I was like, all right, I got some cash. Like, I'm going to get out of here. Like, and so I did that. I sold a bunch of stuff. I bought a Sturley long haul trucker bicycle because I wanted to get something local. And then I covered it in tape, so it didn't have any decals or anything. So I didn't want to look like I had money. I just wanted to look like kind of a dirt ball. And yeah, I told my parents I was going to go on this bicycle trip. I had a friend that actually I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school with, named Quinn. Super cool guy. Played hockey together, and had heard and hadn't talked to him that he had done a trip from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, down to the southern tip of South America, and he went fast, and I think it took him like 16 months or something like that. It was something really, really quick, and he's going to be the guy that I'm going to recommend you guys talk to. And there's probably a couple of others. I have some really interesting critters that I know, but I had heard he had done this thing, and I was like, well, I was nearing graduation, and I was like, that sounds cool to me. So I sent him an email, and then he wrote back to me. He's like, dude, it's the best thing I ever did. I mean, he didn't take the time to really ingest as much because he was just trying to move fast. And he was raising money for macular degeneration. His grandpa had suffered from it, and it was a thing that drove him. But also, I mean, he was an adventurous cat. He was going to go do stuff no matter what. So yeah, I was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to make it happen. So then I bought like a multi-fuel camp stove that I could use gasoline for my cooker. So it's super simple. Like, you could use white gas, alcohol, gasoline, and you can get gasoline everywhere. So it was like an MSR Whisperlight International or something. And then I bought a tent, like the lightest tent I could find, racks for the front and back of the bicycle, some waterproof bags, 4 bags, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And then slept in my buddy's basement for a couple months, valeted a bunch, like to make some cash before I left. Went to my parents' house, hung out with them for a week, and then took off from central Wisconsin. I had never been to, not slipping my mind, but I came back to Minneapolis from Stevens Point in a couple days, and then I headed north to Highway 2 in North Dakota, so like went through like Fargo, Moorhead, and then made my way across. And it's interesting, just a degree of separation, in that Emma recommended for me to be on your podcast. On this bicycle tour in 2010 when I left, I met her boyfriend, Tim Statry. During that trip, I was like 5 days in, and a friend of mine from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, that I grew up with, had been his coach in St. Cloud for, was it lacrosse? And he hit me up because he knew I was doing this trip, and he's like, hey, I got a buddy, Tim. He lives up north there. Like, you should go stay with him. And so I spent the night at Tim's house, sleeping in his yard. We drank a bunch of beer, hung out. And he was about to go to South Africa, and like he was on his own trajectory to like adventure. And we randomly, years later, I didn't know he was in Minneapolis. I had come back after having traveled and been gone for a while. We were in a yoga class, and he came in, and we ended up, having a bro conversation in the locker room. Caught up. I invited him to go mountain biking because I always have an extra one around. And we went shredding, and then we became buddies. And so that's where, like, then I met Emma, and Emma's dope. And yeah, it was kind kind of sweet, like the way that those things kind of work out. Like years later, by chance, you know. I mean, hippie-haired Matt versus short. I mean, I had this crazy ass hair and big Jesus beard. I actually used to have to pose in Latin America for people to like stand like this with like a robe on. Él parece Jesucristo, mira. You know, but, silly. Yeah. But yeah,
So,
it was a big.
So in like the earliest parts of getting on this process to bike, what's going through your head? Are you thinking like from the very beginning, simply what if I can, and is this possible? Oh, I know. Wait, actually, this is possible? Like doing that kind of like train of thought through your head on repeat.
Yeah. You know, the way I looked at it then, and of course this is years of separation, and now I'm a little bit older, and I think I still would do something like this again, and I'm going to, like, bucket list items, or, you know, I want to start in South Africa, like Cape Town to Cairo eventually. But this idea at the time was like, it was a, you know, a big dedication of time. But then I was thinking about it like, okay, like I'm going to be gone, you know, and it's, some people look at it as like it was an escape or a vacation. Like, I don't know. When I look back on it, I didn't realize what it was going to look like. Like, in planning early on, a bit of anxiety, because I was going to try not to pay for places to stay very often, because I didn't want to spend money on that. So you know, my early nights of camping were really weird and uncomfortable. Now I had some people that helped to ease it in and make it a little bit easier, but, you know, sleeping on the side of a highway, you know, with mosquitoes and our state bird like going after you all night, not the greatest. And then like thinking you're hearing stuff. I wasn't accustomed to be in like more semi-urban or like even rural environments, but where there's people and then hiding in a tent, which I did a lot of. That was difficult. But as I was planning it, I was like, you know what? I want to do something. I want to learn Spanish. And I want to experience the culture when I go and visit these places. And I think the best way to do it, walking would be even more in touch, because you can move away from that mechanical object, and all you need is shoes, which is awesome. And I have a story about a guy that I met who was super killer, who was doing something really awesome in South America. But I figured the bicycle, like, because I wanted to do it in around 2 years or less. And I think I don't know who the hell I was, still like 26. For me at the time, I don't know. I knew what I was trying to do. I knew what I wanted to do, but I was like, hey, I want to go and experience this thing. I want to learn a language. I want to see these places, and I want to have an early retirement for a little bit. Because I think it's that other piece. When I think about most people, well, just the American dream and the idea is like, all right, Cole, so you go to college, and then you get a job, then you have kids, or you go to school, college, house, kids, or whatever it is, whatever mix of that is. All of those are respectable and super awesome, but that just wasn't going to fit for me. And so finishing college, I was like, all right, like, I could possibly take this path, but instead I kind of just want to be alive, and I want to feel like every day is like, I mean, and it can feel like that every day anyway, which is awesome. But I think this was a nice awakening for me, in that I wanted to go ride my bike, get exercise every day, you know, feel the wind through my hair, meet people in a way like what you guys are doing with your podcast, and have conversations with people in different parts of our country, heading from here to the West Coast and down, and then through the countries that I was able to visit. And that's why it ended up taking me 2 years. It was 20,000 miles. But back to the question. I was nervous for sure. And I knew that like my parents were nervous as hell for me. And like, they weren't that stoked that I was going to go do this, but you know, that wasn't their decision. So, and they ended up embracing the heck out of it.
Yeah, I love that. And
I have had that help from my friend Quinn. Yeah.
No, right on. I guess one question I had was, you know, when people ask like, "Oh, Matt, why are you doing this?" Like, and you've alluded to this idea of like, I wanted to experience the culture of like the Spanish culture. I wanted to learn Spanish. I wanted to kind of get away, but also like really just experience something. And you also alluded to like a mini retirement, which I love that concept. But was there something deeper down that now looking back at it, hindsight, that maybe you didn't necessarily know at the time, but now looking back at it could allude to or address? Was there something deeper there, or was it still seriously just like that surface level?
Well, I think it's always a combination of things, certainly. Like, and I remember, like, at the time, I had been in a relationship for a reasonable time span with a very lovely lady, and it was like months before I was coming to graduation where we called it quits and moved on. So that was definitely a thing. You know, these emotional breaks and tendencies definitely have something to do with everything. And then it's also just, you know, living in that reality at that time. It was like post 2008, like that recessionary period. There's a quantity of opportunity, but of which now I think I know better how to jump on it. But I think that the reality is like, yeah, I just wanted to feel alive. I think there was so much time. I worked through high school to be able to try to pay for college. Worked at a pallet shop. I worked full time at different moments during school or high school so that I could pay for college. And then I worked almost full time through university, so that I didn't have a lot of time to myself. I think it was more like the pendulum was swung so far in one direction that I ended up swinging it in the opposite one, rather than like, because there hadn't been balance. I was working 30 to 40 hours a week while I was in school full time. And yeah, I think it was like that gasket popped. It was like, all right, I do want to learn Spanish. I do want to feel what it is to do something like this, accomplish something, and prove to myself that I can make it happen. But I didn't have any doubt that I could. I think I was just so excited to just prove to myself that it was something that could happen.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting home on something that I personally am experiencing right now. The idea of that pendulum being so focused on your craft, so focused on like your profession and what's happening behind the scenes with just work in general. Like that is something that just consumes my brain every second of the day, at every waking hour. And there's so many points where I love it, but there's not a ton of time where I'm just sitting and like experiencing my own thoughts and like embracing that just like constant moment, because I'm thinking of, okay, this could happen next. I have to be ready for it. Where can I plan ahead in this area? How can I take action and move momentum in with Date Night Podcast or Bochella, all these different ventures that Backpocket Productions is after. And I think there's going to be, and I feel it. I feel like there's going to be a moment in the coming years where it's going to be like, fuck, I need to like take some more time to myself and swing the pendulum solely, not like to the extreme of 2 years biking from Wisconsin to Argentina, but
you don't know that, dude.
I don't know that, right? I feel that type of, so Declan and I are sitting here at 25 years old, a year before you did something to the extreme of biking this venture. Like, I feel like that type of adventure is calling. I don't know what it is yet, and I'm not going to start guessing on what it is, but that idea of swinging the pendulum to a solo adventure, because what I love about this conversation, where it's going to head, is you're looking at three guys who are embracing adventure every day. And that's the true nature of the three of us. I can confidently say that to Declan, and just hearing so far your story, Matt, like we are adventurers. So I really relate to that aspect of swinging the pendulum.
Certainly. Yeah. And what's interesting is with your situation and where you guys are at, like, I mean, Declan's living in an RV, and you guys are trying to figure out how to make this production company work. Like, there is so much potential to still be able to travel and produce what you're doing, like interesting people are having conversations in this format. You can find people all over the world. So there's so many evolutions that I'm sure that you guys have thought about and you guys probably talk about. But then there's this other piece to the pendulum in my mind now that I've been back since, I've done a number of little, like, big trips, 2 little trips, but there's just other ways. I found, like, for me, certain outlets that help to feed that gremlin. Like, my buddy and I talked about it being our gremlin. Like, it's like, and I don't know what mine looked like. Have you guys ever seen Gremlins?
Ugly motherfuckers.
They have, like, characters in each of them, and, like, there's like, yeah. I'm like, there's, like, this, it just, like, kind of wants to, like, reach out and be like, like, we gotta do something, but there's other ways to feed it. It's like, like, running is a thing that helps me. Taking these, like, weekend trips or going, like, just doing something crazy, like flying out to some place and doing a big run or whatever. It doesn't need to be a multi-year adventure. I like multi-year adventures because it's interesting because when you do, and then when I came back, everything had changed. But for the most part, other than living in a pandemic, like, the reality is that, like, most of the time you can exit and come back. And if you keep, like, the strings of the people that you hold dear and love, nothing has changed, and we're all just kind of grinding and just trying to make things work in some way or another. But I mean, who knows? That might be the thing. And if you guys decide to do any, like, crazy trips, I'd be happy to help you plan one.
Yes.
Yeah, totally, dude. And I think you're definitely onto something with the aspect of, like, you can go anywhere in the world and be at any time and place in a different, like, alone or on an adventure, whatever it is. It's like, if you have those tight strings in your life and connections to these people, like, I start to realize, like, they're always going to be around because they want that. The reason there's a string there and there's a line is because you're pulling on it and so are they. So, like, there's this aspect of, like, and that's love, right? I mean, at the end of the day. And when I moved out to Arizona coming up almost a year ago and started living in the RV and everything, and, like, I hear you where you're saying, like, there's this idea of, like, adventure and meeting new people every week and, like, kind of throwing yourself out there and, like I went to San Diego a couple weeks ago, met a couple buddies, and now I'm going back in 2 weeks, and it's like there's these aspects of just, like, really throwing yourself into the situations and feeding that gremlin almost. And what's cool is, like, being able to get that perspective from you more so, but and seeing that bug and that itch in ourselves. And I know our listeners are much in tune, and not only our listeners but also our friends. Like, we have a good buddy named Mark Dowdle who and you guys would vibe totally. He just finished a run and Andrew was a part of it. He ran 160 miles from Duluth, Minnesota to St. Paul for a charity, and
in 72 hours.
It's 43 hours, right?
Oh, yeah, no, it's just over 48. Sorry.
Yeah. 40. It was like 43 hours, but regardless, man, it was just like it's so impressive to see that man go. And he lives in a van right now, hustling coffee for Busy Coffee. They're a great brand, cold brew company.
He live up here?
He lives in Minnesota. He was actually just hanging out with Tim and Emma at Mount Hood in Oregon, and dude's got the Jesus hair. He lives out of the van. This is his second or third road trip out there. Like, kids really doing it. So definitely gonna connect you guys eventually here. It's a no-brainer. But I guess just kind of.
Yeah, I want to go run with them.
Yeah, dude. Oh yeah, totally. So I guess I want to kind of get some more perspective from you. So, like, the last thing you kind of mentioned was, like, this connection with Tim that you made, like, early on in your trip. When did you really start to head south?
In Anacortes, Washington. I went across. I actually met people who were doing, like, a east to west coast and west to east coast bicycle trips, and I rode with some Boy Scouts for a while. There's like a couple guys that were bringing some Boy Scouts across from North Carolina, and it was super cool. I think there was like 8 of these kids, and it was so fun to watch. Like, one of their dads came out, and he liked whiskey, and so did I. So we connected pretty well. These kids would like go shopping for the bike, and he like to buy a watermelon, and I'm like, people are trying to get rid of weight, and he's just like loading it up, and then he beat everyone to the top. And they all had clip shoes, so like one kid would always fall over when we got to the end of the day or whatever, or the spot we were stopping at. But so I started in July. Like, I think it was September when I got to Anacortes. So I think it was September. And then from there, I started heading south.
Got it.
I actually had rode with the Boy Scouts for a while, for a few weeks, and then the dad gave me one of those GPS spots to put on my bike for when I was in Latin America, because I told him I was going to get rid of my my phone, because I didn't want to have a phone when I was down there. And so I kept that. I ended up losing that in Argentina later on, but we had a send off, had some drinks. I hung out with like all the parents that came to be there for their kids finishing their big bike trip. It was super cool, really positive. I mean, it's awesome. Like, teenagers just like crushing a cross country trip, like pretty inspirational. But then so I started heading down the coast on my own there. I ran into different people doing like the PCH, like the Pacific Coast Highway. And it's very user-friendly for anyone who ever thinks about doing like a bicycle tour, because there's hiker-biker sites down the whole coast where you can, it's like $5, it was $5 at the time, maybe $10 now, but they have showers and stuff. So I stayed at some of those. Other times I hobo-styled it and just found a beach. I always tried to find like free camping, because, I don't know, free's better than $5 or $10, and I don't care if I smell bad. Like, so in that way, San Francisco, I was about to wait for a friend who was going to come do Burning Man, but I slept next to a dump a couple nights and wasn't really enjoyed it that much, so I just kept going. I did have a friend come to San Francisco, and I spent a few days there with him. We just had like a little, party weekend and like goofed around and stuff, which is really fun. I mean, the PCH was a blast. Like, I rode with some pretty cool people. There's a guy from Tennessee and this dude from London. We had a night. Do you want to hear about this? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Keep going.
All right. So we stayed just outside of Arcata. Have you guys been to California, Arcata, or that area?
Not Arcata. Where's Arcata specifically?
It's like central Humboldt County.
Okay.
It's where like kind of all the wild, crazy weed growing was happening.
Okay.
Sweet. All right.
I
like that area.
So, yeah, it's a good area. Pretty decent. So when I was there, we like stayed at this place, undisclosed place. People were there to clip certain types of plants, and we just like set up our tents outside of it. It was really nice. And so we had gone into Arcata, and it's super cool, like kind of hippie, kind of fun. Had gotten some pizza. We went out with like this guy that my Tennessean buddy knew, and we were like, this is kind of boring going out with this couple. So like him and I decided we were going to go out, and it was like a 5-mile bike ride into town. So we stopped and grabbed beers and a bottle of Wild Turkey 101. That was the night. So we, I don't know, met some people at a head shop at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Had a good time hanging out with them, but then the world turned into a video game somehow. I don't know how that happened. And then the next thing you know, we had been biking for hours. We're down these like cattle roads. And my buddy, I asked him, I'm like, hey, are we going in the right direction? Because it didn't take us this long to get here the last time. And he's like, I think, hold on. And then he showed me he had a compass on him. And I looked at it, and I'm like, which way is north, dude? And he's like, that way. I'm like, no. Oh, no. So I pulled out my phone, we had been going in the wrong direction for like 2 hours. We were like 13 miles in the opposite direction of where we were supposed to go to get back home or back to our tents. Yeah, so we got home at like noon that next day, but it was really fun.
Holy
got to
shit.
experience California the right way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What I
Had some
love,
party.
yeah, what I love hearing about like these pit stops and this journey throughout everything is the way you're looking at it is it's never about like when you get to this certain spot.
No.
The time of everything is so irrelevant. It's all
Mhm.
about just moving in a direction and
Mhm.
seeing what's there, who's going to be there, who can I meet, and how can I just embrace what's happening in this current area. And I think that's really cool. It's not an easy thing to do. You're making it sound like and I'm
Nah.
assuming like the listeners they're
Mhm.
hearing this and like, oh, this guy's just having a blast, like going left and right down this journey, riding his bike.
Mhm.
But that's not an easy thing to do, to like to remove time from a pressure standpoint, from an anxiety
Mhm.
standpoint, and actually like sit in what's happening. So I give you mad props to
Certainly.
that, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but and then there's also like you just like that's a good point that you're making. Like there's the other idea is that like you're on a bicycle. You have so much time where you're just riding and thinking. I think that, so 26, and that's you guys are right at this, like in this place where, I mean, I thought I think I think I know who I am right now, but there's still like always there's these like layers that we're trying to understand about ourselves. And it was really good because the other side is like, okay, so every day I'd wake up on my bicycle and then I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night. And that's a little scary. And you want to make sure that you're set up so you can feel comfortable in sleep, because, the hard part about sleeping is like you want to feel safe when you go to bed, and that provides you with the best opportunity for a full functional night of sleep. And, there were plenty of times where that wasn't the case. And then there were also plenty of days where I had had a hard time, but I mean, even just heading across through the U.S., and we haven't even made it into Latin America, which was amazing. I stayed at Wolf Point Reservation, and I had, one of the worst nights I've ever had in my life, to the point where I even thought, like, maybe this isn't worth it. Like, and, but I got away, and I was okay, like, it was early on in the trip. I didn't really know what was going on. Trusted the wrong people, stayed with them. They ended up having like heavy drug abuse problems, and one had just gotten out of prison for meth distribution. It was just a wild thing, but I was able to make it work. And as soon as they passed out, I got out of their house and biked as fast as I could, even though biking as fast as you can is like, 18 miles an hour on a fully loaded bike. Like you're not getting that far. So
No, you're not.
I mean, the reality is like, yeah, it's to that point, and that like living in the moment, there was no shelter. My shelter was a tent, and that is a piece of fabric between you and the rest of reality. Safety is all kind of in your mind anyway.
Yeah. No, I
So-
think you're kind of touching on something interesting there, because it's like you're always at this like constant battle of like battling against your own anxiety and your expectations, right? Like you want to stay with these like you kind of want to be with like the Boy Scouts the whole time. You're like, this is a
Mhm.
great dose of inspiration, positivity, good people, the Boy Scouts.
Yeah. Totally.
there's this aspect of comfortability, and your expectations being fulfilled, but then you get hit with these different types of situations that humble you, right? And there's this constant reality and nagging of like, where am I gonna be the next day? And I always when I'm in those situations too, I always kind of realize like, if I can like let go of this idea that like it's not the end of the world that I just biked in the wrong direction, or it's like I'll figure it out, and just kind of build that confidence. Is that something that like you found yourself getting better at? Like you found like you weren't I guess I'm asking, like, were you getting better at waking up every day just being like, okay, I'll figure out where I'll live tonight, and like if it's not the best situation, like I'll bike away when they pass out, or like stay positive, like I'm gonna find the best night to stay at every time. Like was those thoughts of ups and downs and lefts and rights in the mornings from day to day to day for the last 2 years, like was that ever exhausting, or was that more of a fuel source for you?
It just became like, so that was the anxiety that I felt is what that was going to look like for sure. And to be honest, during that time span, there were only two really human caused issues over 2 years, and that was one of them. And that was early in my trip. And that was ultimately because I was, I wasn't quite as aware. I think I could have smelled that situation if I had been on the road longer. And I think I was able to avoid a lot of, uncomfortable or poor situations just because I had been on the road long enough. I think I'm a pretty empathetic person. I can usually read people all right, I think. And I definitely will err on the side of not knowing anything because I don't. But there's like the thing that like you start to feel out situations, and you start to see where they could possibly go and what the worst case scenario is, So yeah, I think that it did develop something that I don't think I really had before. I think because we're always so, like it's just living day to day, like having a job, having all of the social pressures that exist with being a friend, a brother, a son, having all these like social places that sometimes, of course, like if you're off schedule and you're running late, you're going to feel more anxiety. But I think it did help, like the same type of thing as you said with like the Boy Scouts and comfortability. Like it was really nice to be with them. And when they left, I felt like, you feel a sense of loss. It's the same thing as when you have a great weekend with people that you love. And then you're like, all right, we all have to go home. And you're like, oh, it's happening too fast. We should have done 3 or 4 days this time, But that's always going to be the case. And and that's the thing I think about with this trip that really helped me at the time, is that there were always more people to love, and all kinds of more people who were going to love on me and take me in and show me a world that I could have never expected, Like I stayed with fishermen. So like my entrance into Mexico, I stayed in Tijuana with my friend's uncle. He owned a small trucking business. He let me use his little Toyota Tacoma, like old Toyota. And I cruised around Tijuana for a few days, spent time with him. He took me to all like a pozole place, took me to have some like good food. And it was awesome. And then I had to say goodbye to Alejandro. And I'm like, oh, man. And there was like that sense of loss again. But then it was just like the next thing, like, a family catches you on the side of the road and they're like, what are you up to? You're like, oh, I'm biking from Wisconsin. And they're like, hey, do you want to hang out? Like, come on over. And you're like, sweet, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I have nothing else to do, And like having that availability of time and not having to really think about like you feel out the people and then you just go do the thing. You're living in the moment, which is very difficult to do because when we're like right now, the way that I'm alive now, I live in Northeast Minneapolis. I have all these responsibilities, and sometimes it's hard to just, even when I'm with my friends and with like these things, like there's so much pressure where I didn't have any of that. And it definitely helped to develop. I have to pay that tribute, like that tribute to like how I can sometimes be better, because I'm still the same as everybody else. Like I get a notification on my phone and there's something in my brain that triggers, and what's that? It pulls me out of conversation and stuff. So, but it was huge. It was very helpful. Not having a phone for 2 years or a year and 8 months was a really good practice in self-care for sure.
Yeah, definitely has to be a breath of fresh air. How many days did it take to get to Mexico? As just a quick question there.
So time spans, I do know. So down the coast, yeah, I've done a little more homework. Um, I know I flew back from Guadalajara before Christmas. Um, I think it took you could do the coast in a month. You could probably do the coast faster if you wanted to. You could a couple weeks. Um, I mean, you guys are a couple of fit dudes. Like, I'm sure you guys could jump on bikes and do 100 miles a day. Like, have you guys ever biked a century or 100 miles or something?
No, nothing like that.
Well, you can, I'm sure.
Okay.
That's my perspective. I don't know.
I'd like to think I can.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys play sports when you were younger or anything?
We both played football at St. Thomas in college.
Oh, right on.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can go bike 100 miles. You can. My roommate Call. I have a roommate who he came back from salmon fishing. Another really interesting person. And he didn't have a gig, so he had stored his stuff here. I'm like, well, I'll just stay, man. Like, it works, like, easy. But this last like summer, late fall, when he had gotten back, the most he had ever biked was like 35 miles or something like that. I'm like, let's just go have a big day. And he's like, all right, cool. And we just made a day out of it. I think we did like 75 miles or something. And then that weekend, he biked from here almost to his parents' house in central Wisconsin. So he biked over 100 miles. And he was just like, I didn't even realize I could do that. And I'm like, yeah. And now he's like out crushing miles with his buddies. Like, it's all just. So I don't know.
Are you writing down things every day to like just say, all right, what if I could do this? This is an adventure that I could see myself in this situation. Just out of curiosity, like how do you like find that next thing? What's inside you that's like pushing you to just stay connected to being an adventurer, if you will?
Just to stay healthy. I don't know. I think I have sleep apnea and asthma. So I use a mouth guard because my buddy, actually I've snored forever, and one of my friends who's a chiropractor, he came down, really awesome, another awesome dude you could talk to. He's also done some bicycle touring, and he's like big into like nutrition and health, and a lovely human being. His name is Sam. He came down to ride with me for a month in Argentina. And I had bought a new tent and had it sent, and it was like a 4 season, like really nice one. And I was like, dude, you don't have to bring a tent. You can crash with me, easy. We have plenty of space. Has like a big porch. And after one night of him sleeping with me, he's like, dude, like you're like a bear, just like snoring all night. He's like, when I got back, he's like, you need to get an oral appliance or go get a sleep study done because you have sleep apnea. But I think it's just, there's just so much out there. Like there's doing that trip. I got another buddy of mine to go and do Haiti and the Dominican with me afterwards, which was like a major hobo tour. Like we didn't have anything, just a little backpack, tarp, and walked until we could find bikes. It's that there's just so much in the world. The idea for me is like I just want to be alive. I want to be alive as long as I possibly can. So 8 hours of sleep, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep book, read that. It's a good thing to do. Like, yeah, try to eat more of a plant-based diet is my idea. Although, or whatever, I don't know if that's the right thing. All these different things. I'm a server at a steakhouse, so I also eat steak. But I'm just, I don't know. I just like to be alive and do stuff.
Dude, I love that.
And so you can.
No, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, so like now it's like ultra running. Like I got into that when I got back. So I had a buddy who said he wanted to do a 50K in Duluth, the Wild Duluth 50K. So we did that, and I think we've done that 5 or 6 times. I did the Superior 100 from Gooseberry Falls to Lutsen on the Superior Hiking Trail a couple of years ago. I'm going to do the Moab 200 this year with a friend of mine, who I'm probably going to be working with very soon, named Andy, who's going to be buying a tree farm or a tree nursery out in New Germany from his father. But yeah, I just want to keep trying stuff, push limits.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I Emma told us you were training for the Moab 200 or 240 or I forget how many miles it is specifically, but what kind of got you into ultra running, and like, is it still back to this idea of just being healthy?
Yeah, or and also the pendulum.
The pendulum, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You had a couple nights on the couch.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things for sure. Like, I don't know. So, yeah, it's 238 miles. My buddy Nick tried to do it last year, and he had some imbalance. He also had to have surgery this year, which might have attributed to what caused him to have a hard time with it. Yeah. Have you guys heard of this David Goggins?
Oh yeah. We know David awfully well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I saw him walk by at the beginning of the race, and my buddy Andy and I, who we did the rim to rim to rim together, we had arrived late to be there as like pacers and aid for my buddy, and we had both drank like 4 Modelos like when we woke up, and we were just standing there, and he came walking by, and it felt like his eyes were burning into our soul. So I didn't say anything. I was like, David Goggins, you're sweet, man, like inspirational.
With the Modelo in your hand?
Yeah, real quick though. Dude, you're a total inspiration. But like, I love David Goggins, don't get me wrong. Like, listening to him on Rogan for the first time was like so eye-opening, and I'm like, he is legitimately inspirational based on the things he's done first and foremost, and then the things he says. But like, as a personality and as an actual human being, like, if you see him walk by in real life and you have a beer in your hand and you're like there and you describe the situation as you thought he stared and burned a hole in your soul, like, how is that a human? Like, we're so, and Andrew and I are biased obviously in the sense of like, dude, we're all ordinary average humans who are just like, walking the earth trying to survive like the next person, like, and we all happen to be also at the Moab 240, like, trying to be pacers or are on our own journeys that are extraordinary, right? Yeah. Like, that's just something that I have a problem with, is like, can this man just be approachable? Like, can we just have David Goggins as like a vulnerable human being who like it can be just someone that you could come up to and be like, yo, David Goggins, sick dude. Yeah.
I know, and we might have been able to. I don't know, but I did. So we were there when Michel Greglia, I think was his last name, the guy who won it this last year. He was a Italian underwear model. I mean, he was a good-looking cat for sure. Like, I don't know what he's doing ultra running and not. I'm modeling underpants. Like, I'm not. I could take pictures of me in my underpants. They're not going to get anything all that great, but he was a really friendly, goofy guy, and he told me that his experience with Goggins was tough too. Like, he like in his interview afterwards, he was like yelling at him. He's like, "Show me what you're worth," And I don't think it's just a brand. I think he's just a hard guy. He's had some suffering. He's gone through some things, and I don't think he means to be, like, hurtful to anybody. And he also shared his message. And as a guy like him, like, my personal thought is that, like, a guy like him who was like against doing the social media and is pretty personal, pretty maybe introverted, for him to even expose his life to people and have it be an inspirational piece, I'll take that, and I'll understand that, like, I don't know, I'm not that personality, and that's why, like, for me, I look at it and I'm like, I like hanging out. I like joking around and goofing off, and I definitely recharge as an introvert, I think, but I definitely am willing to share, and make people feel comfortable around me. Where, like, I think he's a little bit more abrasive of a guy, and it's on brand then too. So I'm sure him with, his Instagram and all the stuff that he's doing now, it's probably just part of that. Like, he can't. I don't know. He's like a machine. He's a badass. Like, I can't. If I've ever met a badass in my life, like, or just even just like seeing him walk by, he was just like, I'm like, I don't want to get in his space. Like, this guy is going to go and run 240 miles. Like, for me, I'm going to go try and do it, but, like, I might fall over sometimes, I might even cry. I hope not.
Yeah, but I think, and I think David Goggins, as a tool of inspiration, like you really just leave it at that. But I think a lot of the times, and what you're talking about is so pure, man. Like this aspect of just, I'm gonna try and run the Moab 240, and if I fall over and cry, that's just because I fall over and cry trying to do it. Like at the end of the day, like you're just trying to get it done, man. Like you're trying to live your life, you're trying to stay alive. If you fall over and cry because you fall over and cry, that's just who you are. And I think that transparency and like just that authentic true self is like to me that's what goes the distance for people. And I'm not saying that's what people want or that's what people need. Like that's what works in today's age. It's just like that's who you are, man. Like no one should apologize for that,
Yeah, and I think on top of that, like you need the extremists of the world for you to be able to take away like that middle ground. Because if there's no one pushing at that to that limit, then there's no way for you to be like, oh, I absolutely love how David Goggins has that mental flip to just go, go, go. That's not who I am, but I can see how he does it, and I'm going to do it my way. So having like that light is huge, and I don't agree with like everything he does, but to have him, right, and I think we're getting at this, and like you can go at it from every extremist out there, which is really cool. He is one of a kind, and there's no one else like him. But what I can channel from what he's capable of is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the athletic endeavors. So I mean, there's other monsters, like there's like and someone that I think I don't know if you've ever had her, but you've heard of Courtney Dallwalter.
Oh yeah, she's a badass.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, and she is. Like, I'm a fangirl, fanboy or whatever I'm gonna call it, fanboy. Like, she's like eating nachos and drinking beers. She wears like, basketball shorts and a t-shirt, and she goes and crushes, and she still owns the record at Moab. Like, she's a beast. And that even sounded like her husband when he paced her, like it slowed things down a little bit. And like that's amazing. Like that she could go out, as a gal in the first place, or as a woman in the first place, and then also like that. It's cool that we're able to see, because it's like women's finishers, men's finishers, but then ultra. It turns out like I don't know. Like I've always thought that, you hear your mom talk about childbirth, and you're like, yeah, that's probably pretty painful. I mean, I just watch a video of it once, and I'm like, Jesus, that's disgusting, but like awesome and cool because human life. But like then she goes out and she talks about the pain cave, and I'm like, when I'm in my pain cave, there are so many cuss words that are coming out. I'm like, all right, beast mode, like I'm not gonna quit, but there's like it's amazing that it's just cool to see now that there's these other, the human anatomy is different of a male and a female, and then what we're able to handle. But then ultra is where like a place where like women are overtaking men, and it equals the playing field at like that distance. And then you hear her have the conversation where you hear like, Goggins is a hardcore dude, but then you have like laid back like biology teacher who just crushes, and she's just like goofy and nice, and Minnesota, which is easy for us to understand.
Right. Do you have any expectations on your end for the Moab when you get there, or training for it, or going through this process?
I'm gonna finish it. Yeah, I'm gonna finish it. Yeah, I don't know. I have so Tim, and then there's a group of guys that I met. We all go to the Boundary Waters every year. We call ourselves the Bears, but we all try to go out and we try to run. So it's starting up again now, where we go run at Highland on Tuesdays. I think we're going to start getting solid about it again early at early in the morning, like 6 or 6:30. And then we try to do like hill repeats on the weekends, which are things I have to do. I bought a Sprinter van that was for that too. Getting the awning tomorrow. My buddy had been living in it for the last 4 years, so I have my hobo vehicle that the support crew will be able to utilize. That has a fan and a bed and a refrigerator, cooler, so plenty of beer for whoever's just hanging out. But yeah, I'm gonna do it. My buddy Andy, him and I are going to try to run it together because neither one of us have an expectation for time. Depending on injury is another thing too. Like I've been doing marathon Mondays for a couple weeks, and I messed up my hamstring the other day, and I'm realizing like little things like mortality and age. 37. Like I just have to make sure I pay attention to all those little things. Like getting to sleep, hydrating properly, not eating like an idiot. But yeah.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. And like just from like a mental aspect, because I know that's 90% of the battle here is just telling yourself that you can do it, and knowing that these peaks and valleys are part of the process. I feel like we always try and have this conversation of like how like how is this possible, like what does it take mentally, like how are you hardening your mind, if we're going to go back to the Goggins thing. Like I guess what I'm really looking for with my question is just like when those situations come up where it's like your mind is saying no, like what do you think in your own head to say yes?
Is that I think that reminds me of like a hip hop song. It's like my mind is saying no, but my body's saying yes.
Maybe.
Or is that,
remember the name?
Okay.
What's the name of the song? Remember the name Fort Minor, where it's like 50% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name. Something like that. I mean, that's definitely not the song you were trying to mention.
Why aren't you rapping?
Dude.
Hold on. Like, dude, hold on a second.
Decky diss track.
All right. Come on. We got some things going on here. We got to get Declan doing some shit. He's got the name too for it. Like, like, yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I liked it.
Dude, I was like poorly representing a song that I heard when I was like in middle school. Like, don't give me the credit, like that. This is just me riffing and speaking my mind off of a song. I literally incorrectly was like, oh yeah, it's probably this song, and they threw it out there, said the lyrics wrong, told you what the name was. It's not impressive whatsoever. We got to move on.
How about that? 'Cause you were just speaking them slowly, and I think that you could probably get a little flow going.
Correct. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Don't let me get hot. Don't let me get hot. Don't let me get moving fast. But you're right. I
don't know where we were. I'm sorry. I was so distracted.
No, dude. Hey, I will stop rapping. But I'm seriously curious. Like, what is this mental? Because as I start to meet these new people who are just doing like these crazy things, like a lot of it is just like when you get punched or if something's coming at you, and it just sucks in your brain. Your body's already weak. Like what's the thing that you tell yourself to just totally counteract it and tell yourself like we're gonna keep moving forward? Like I just want you to kind of explain that a little bit, because I think it's so fascinating for every individual who does it.
I mean, how many things do you do every day that feels like that?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. Like that's all right. So I think if it's the Moab, it's what I want to do. And I remind myself that it's what I want to do. I'm running, and it's beautiful. Trail running, like I'm going to be able to experience, 238 miles of southern Utah. It's gorgeous down there. I love it so much. And, the overnight is going to be really hard. But I'm going to have friends out there who are going to come and pace me, and as whoever wants to. I mean, if for any reason you guys decided you want to come down and run around on the Moab for a little bit, I am truly inviting you. Like, it's like that's an opportunity. I get to go do something that is weird, stupid, fun, but it's beautiful, and it's something that I get to encounter all of it. I'm gonna hallucinate probably, but I'm gonna accomplish a thing, and I'm gonna accomplish it with a friend, a person that I really care for deeply, someone that I find to be a very great part of my life. You know, it's the other thing. It's like challenges that we're facing. You guys are on the cusp of starting something new, and you're going to have so much difficulty. I'm sure you're going to have all these little, you know, things that you're going to have to leap over and figure out. But the cost is that it's going to be hard, but nothing usually that is worthwhile isn't hard. You know, like for the most part, like everything that I've been able to accomplish, I've done, you know, because I'm fortunate. You know, I'm fortunate because I live in the United States, and all those, like, I can come down to whatever level we need to like say, like, you know, I'm a white guy and everything else, but like I worked my ass off to be alive, and if it's something that I want to do, I want to go do it. You know, I want to try it. If it's not going to hurt anybody else, and it can be a thing that like proves to myself, like the Moab, it's just a run. You know, I'm going to take a really long run, and when it's all said and done, I'm going to prove to myself that is something I can do, and then I can take that into my regular life, and it gives me that strength, it gives me that positivity and sense of mind that aids me in everything else that I need to do. You know, I'm gonna go through some shit every now and then. You know, I'm gonna have this party that's gonna treat me like shit at work, but I'm gonna try new things, and I'm gonna push and learn and continue to try to get better. Like, I trade stocks too, and that's something that this year has been a focus because I was furloughed a fair amount, and it's been a good year, like, and confidence building. So I think these physical endeavors basically are a way to put yourself through the, you know, to go into the trenches, to like face your shit, to deal with all the things that are stuck in your brain. Like, I look at yoga. I go to yoga as much as I can now that it's reopened, and I was trying to practice here at my house, as like floss for your body and like some floss for your mind, you know. But the other piece for me is running helps a lot. And then just having good friends and good people in my life that I can actually have real meaningful conversations with, you know, where there's no barrier, you know, where you can actually like bury yourself and have conversations like what you guys are doing with your podcast or trying to do here, you know. So the idea that the conversation I think we just had about like the David Goggins thing is that like vulnerability is a very positive thing. And so for me, it's like my physical body can do stuff. I know it can still. And so I'm going to go out and do those things. And if it hurts and it starts to suck really bad, well, I don't know. I can dig in to think about all the other things that I've had to deal with in my life that sucked worse, you know, and just realize that I'm doing something that I want to do. And if it's something that I don't want to do, well, it's going to end eventually, you know.
Totally.
Like, I've been at work with one of my buddies that I trail run with, and like he's like, dude, I would rather be running 100 right now. And I'm like, yeah, me too, for sure. like that would hurt, and it would suck. But then there are certain social, you know, constructs or moments and commitments that you're, you know, availing yourself to that are maybe worse than running for 30 hours, you know. Mm-hmm. Where like you're like, oh, this 20 minutes. Tell you what, I'd rather have 30 plus hours on this. I think it took me 34 hours to do the 100, something like that, on the spear hiking trail. Like, and that was beautiful. Like, I messed up my hip really bad and couldn't run for a few months afterwards. But like, I would have done the second half where my hip hurt versus some other things that I have to do. But you just get through stuff. Just make it work.
Yeah, I think what's
keep on trying.
Just by trying, and I think what's like exciting me from that end of what you're sharing is the ability to like compartmentalize perspective and take and draw from different experiences and implement it across the board and want to push yourself to extremes so that you can use that physical extremes so that you can use that in so many different situations. And I think that's opening my eyes to something that like I haven't experienced in a while. Declan and I mentioned that we played football at St. Thomas, and that program itself was a mental grind, but also pushed you to physical limits daily that I overcame and Declan overcame, that like taught us to feel like we were superheroes, if you will. Like that aspect was so challenging that I used that in throughout my day, throughout my life, that all the time. But I haven't done it recently, 3 years removed from the program, 3 years plus. I don't think I've challenged myself enough physically to draw back in that experience. And
isn't that an interesting perspective? Yeah.
Yes, and that's exciting me. Like I'm looking now, like okay, I want to push myself physically to re-tap into that, to then draw back and use it a week from now, a month from now, and be like, okay, I did that for 4 days. Okay, I remember how it feels. I remember like that low point, and then that ability to be like, dude, you're all right. It's okay. Yeah. Everything is fine. You're in some serious pain, like, but it's okay. Like you can take that next step. That's really dope. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely like when you think about that time span, confidence is going to be high. You're suffering. You're working hard to make sure that you're ready for game day. You're trying to make sure that and you're balancing everything. And when it's easy to kind of let go of some of that stuff. And that's, I think, it's all these little pieces of life like that. I know that I suffer at some of them, and I know that I'm always imbalanced a little bit, but like it's like the physical part of it does help a lot for me. And if you guys are football players, there's a good chance that you understand, like you just said, you understand the benefit.
Absolutely.
And so you just find those next challenges, or find like the routine that works to make sure that you can exert that energy and show yourself like, all right, cool, like I'm good here. And it's it's like that whole idea that everyone says, like sound body, sound mind, like we're all trying to make sure we keep that going.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think sometimes too is like the challenge. Like I look at like your normal lifestyle as like the sine wave, like where it has a certain bound. It will never amplify and get bigger and bigger, and you get out of tune. You're always gonna your limits are -1 and +1, -1 and +1, -1. Like and you can live like that forever if you really wanted to. Like go to work, go to bed, go to work, go to bed. Like hang out with friends on the weekend and the same people we hang out with all the time. Then like get drunk on Saturday, come back up on Sunday, go back to work. Go like there's this. It's not necessarily a rat race. It's just like it's a level of comfortability of highs and lows that you can live with yourself. But like there's also this aspect, and I think it's something that we're touching on is like there's always if we kind of pick our heads up a little bit and we look around, be like, okay, wait a second, like I want to challenge myself first and foremost. I think that's an important thing. Well, what else is out there? And so sometimes you need people to show you the different challenges to help you kind of pick your head up for you. Like, oh, wow, there's this ice bath thing. You can jump in the lake at Cedar Lake in Minnesota, like in uptown Minneapolis, and fucking jump in with a bunch of people. Like, that's nuts. Like, okay, let me try that. That's tough. Or have friends like Mark Dowdle who are running these crazy distances that you never thought were possible, and now that motivates you to run a 5K. All of a sudden,
I want to run with them. By the way, I really hope that I get to meet up with them.
Yeah, dude. We'll put you in. We're a group text away from you guys having something. So like,
cool.
That's a shoo-in.
That's a shoe. Yeah, total shoo-in. It's a total. You got to do it. It's gonna happen. But like,
little mandate.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he's gonna walk into this mustache,
dude, and you're gonna walk into his hair. So it's gonna be kind of crazy. But there's this aspect of like you can put yourself out of that comfort zone and you're gonna like enter a different mind state, and just like once you do it a couple times and you find like some joy from it or an accomplishment, or you just like you physically just do the thing you didn't think you were able to do, like I think you start to get a little bit addicted to it, and it helps you kind of be aware for the next challenge, the next thing, the next adventure, and it's just a constant cycle. And I think that just I wish that on everybody. Like if there's that one thing that you have that you've been putting off forever, or you just something comes in and into your opportunity window that you can take advantage of. Like my one wish is for everyone to just simply take it, because it's so important to challenge yourself. And I think what you said earlier about this idea of just you want to do it, and like if I'm in the mind space of like I showed up because I wanted to, like you're gonna find a way somehow mentally in your own way to make it happen. And literally that's all I want from people, and that's what I love about like what you're doing and what you have done. And it's just so, that's why I love these types of conversations, because they're so fruitful. And it's just like this aspect of like, it gives you perspective of like, oh, okay, if this guy can like off a whim go bike down to Argentina and survive, or if this guy just wants to go and run the Moab, like, well, what do I want to do? You know, like asking the question is the first step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And alleviating excuses. Like there's always going to be an excuse. Like it's so easy to say no because you have all this stuff going on, you know. Like it's not like when I left, it didn't leave, you know, a small hole in my family. It's not like when I left on a bicycle trip that I was less available as an older brother, you know, to two siblings. You know, there's all these things exist, but you need to be true to yourself. And I think that's the same thing with anything you do, you know, like maybe like working into this production company, or like whatever it is that you want to do with yourself. You need to have those conversations, and that's very difficult to quiet that noise. And if you can find a way to do it, and I find solace in running, in yoga, in bicycling, you know, or, you know, a breathing practice if people aren't active in that format. It's really, I think it's really hard for people today, and maybe I'm wrong, but like a lot of people have kind of forgotten who their true selves are. And hopefully this last year has proven fruitful, and it seems like it may have. There's been a return to nature, which apparently changes your microbiome by walking through the woods, doing some forest bathing, as my buddy reminded me the other day. You know, like that, actually breathing in good, fresh air is functional, and being in nature. Like there's to be in touch with yourself, and then have that conversation. Look at the features and benefits. Look at what the challenges might be. But then also know that like you're only going to be alive for a while, you know, and you don't know how long that's going to be. And if you can still be a functional friend and partner, or whatever it is, like that is going to maybe suffer a little bit because you're going to be imbalanced by doing something that you really want to do. I don't know. Sometimes the safe choice is the wrong choice, I think. I don't know. Like some of the safe choice is the right choice, but I think that like if you have not to just live for your desires, but you have to actually fucking be alive, you know? Like if there's something you want to do and it's not going to hurt other people, maybe your training is going to be unfortunate. You're going to maybe be a little bit off. Or if it's not training, like if you believe you're a good artist and you have the feedback of other people, then fucking try. Because to think like later on, what's the real cost? You know, like there's a lot of things. Like, I mean, if someone who has 2 kids, a single mom, that's a different story. Or like all the different possibilities. But chances, like I've met people, like, I mean, that's one thing that has been beneficial about traveling and just like, or working as a server or whatever, and like always being in contact with people, is that people can overcome things. And, you know, I can go do these things, but there are people who are doing shit that's way fucking harder than what I'm doing. You know, like I think about like healthcare workers right now. Like, come on, kidding me? Like that. This has been an incredible year. I remember I met a woman the other day who she was at one of the nursing homes that was in the news, international news, because they had so many people pass away. They couldn't have their kid. These people died with nurses holding their hands, and she was like a PT. She was like a PT there. She wasn't even a nurse, and she had to go in there and be with people at the end. You know, like, you're not capable of doing that thing you want to do. Like, you are. We're capable of like being there for each other. We're capable of suffering through things. We can do some stuff. Yeah. I'm ranting.
Yeah, man, that just is all good though. That is awesome. I genuinely can't remember the last podcast we've had that has challenged us to think in this way, but also just like reinforced what we've been after for 4 years in a multitude of versions. It's just clean and concise and true. And the idea of being comfortable in the uncomfortable and being willing to suffer a little bit to then see what could come next. It's an everyday thing, and it can come in so many varieties, but it's so fun to put ourselves in that position daily and see what comes next, because what we don't actually know, but we know that we can try and we can move forward and have a ton of fun doing it. And we get a little bit better at it each time we go through it. And we actually ask this question to every single guest. What's your average quality? I think one of Declan and I's average qualities is, moving the needle at times, because we are, in 2 separate locations now, and there's so many different versions. Making money with Backpocket, that's an average quality. But
we're a production company. We love anybody to produce a podcast.
Yeah, we're a production company. We'll produce your podcast.
We'd love to float that one out there.
Yeah, but it's an average quality. Like, it's something we're trying to get better at each day. And I'd like to ask you, Matt, what's something that you're trying to get better at each day that you consider an average quality of yours?
Everything. Man, everything. I think I'm pretty good with people, but I also know that I have oversight. I think I'm a good brother, but I also know that I'm not as available as I should be sometimes. I think that I can be a good son, but I'm not always there. I know that, like, I'm trying to get better at everything. I can't, like, I'm incredibly imperfect, and I'm trying. Like, I think that's why I do some wilder things once in a while, because I want to push. But I know that there's always imbalance, and I'd like to make sure that I'm nursing every part of my life. I think so. Growth. If it's just like pinpoint, like, a simple thing or saying like, I need to be better at time management. That's something for sure. If I could take the block schedule that I've learned about and utilize it properly, that'd be helpful. Instead, I just have like notebooks of stuff, and I have my planner, and I still write it down, and I have my Google Calendar. Managing time would be better, because that's like the finite thing that we have. Like, there's other things that are finite for sure, but time and making sure that I'm utilizing it the best way I can, because I get to have a conversation with you guys right now. This is wonderful. But like, there's times like where you have to weigh things out and figure out which one is going to be the thing you have to do, or thing you should do, and I think sometimes I'm not as good at that as I should be. So I think time management is something, and everything else.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, right? How time management feeds into everything else, because you're trying to fit everything else into the time. And I wrote about this the other day, but I'll share it here too. And it's this idea. I met this guy over the weekend who and it goes back to this mental toughness thing. And I would love for him to share this on the podcast one day. But it's a Canadian guy I work with, and he had a stomach issue. Just like something that was nagging at him every time he'd eat, and he he would have some force punch him this way, but he'd punch back exactly the other way, and just taught his brain how to fight it every single day, and did it for so many years that, you know, it actually affected his blood and how his how fruitful his blood actually was. And he went in to get a blood test one day just because he was feeling sick or whatever. You know, went in, got the blood test, and left, and was, you know, walking around hanging out with friends one day, and he gets a call, and they told him, hey, you have to sit down right away. 911's coming your way. Like, we cannot believe that you're still alive right now. And so fast forward to him being in the hospital and them showing him his blood. And I can't remember the specific details, but anyways, they showed him a normal vial of blood. It looked red. It was normal. And they showed him his blood. And it was incredibly diluted. And they were like, look, dude, somehow your body has been forcing just water into your blood to keep you alive for probably what we think is 2.5 years. And we need to do an immediate emergency transfusion to get yourself back in order. So anyways, you had this big recovery story, but like he describes the situation, and I'll never forget this. And it was just like, he goes, dude, time is a linear scale. You have a start time that you're given, and you have an end time that's unknown. You'll never know when that time ends. And when you get a scare, or when something happens to a buddy, or if something happens in your own life where you feel like that time scale was shortened quicker than you thought, you start to realize this one thing. And it's the fact that you have to make the most of every single second, every single minute, every single moment in time that you have on this earth. And I think it's exactly what you're describing, is like, obviously time management is a big aspect when you look at it that way. How am I making the most of each second of every single day? And if the cord's unplugged tomorrow and the lights go out upstairs and you're done for whatever reason, what did you leave behind, or what potential are you leaving on the table? And so I think when I think of this time management thing, it's like, dude, we're all trying to do all the things all the time. We can't simply, we can never manage that sometimes, especially when we're super passionate about things we want to do. I run into this situation all the time. Andrew does, and you've obviously shared that here today too. So it's like, I think there's an aspect of balance, right? This aspect of just being, just living, and just being the best version of yourself every single day, putting that best step forward. If you don't get all the things done the way you wanted to, or you mismanage your time because you spent too much time doing one thing or the other, it's like, I'm gonna just be fortunate for the fact that like I got that time in today, and I'm gonna work on getting it into the next day. So just kind of that constant reminder, I guess, of gratitude, and obviously focusing on the efficiency of the entire process, that will alleviate some anxiety down the road. But like, dude, it was just really cool and obviously humbling to hear an experience like that, where it's like, oh man, like, yeah, my time is very important, but I'm also like asking myself, like, not only how am I spending my time, but like also what does that time truly mean to me in my life right now?
Yeah, and it's a very humbling idea, because as you're trying to do all of these things that exist, you also are attuned to the people that are in your life, and you need to make sure that you are, you know, touching those strings and making sure that you're nurturing the people that need to be nurtured in your life as well, and as they're nurturing you as well. You know, like it's just this balance, and you said it, it's balance. It's trying to find that balance, and then still also trying, like, making sure that you're striving and growing, because the greater society needs us to strive. Like, it needs us to shine our light in some format or another, I think. And I think that we're on the same page in this idea that, like, be your best true self, and then, when you can give more than that, even, then go ahead and get after it. But yeah, that is a very interesting experience. I've met people like this too, who they shift your perspective. It's like the idea, like, my friend Nate that I rode with in Haiti, he told me his grandpa was his idol, and the one piece of advice he was willing to actually tell him that he was going to give him was, like, just be nice to everybody. You can sleep well at night, and it's that simple. It's like just love people, be nice to them, and because it doesn't really pay to push back. Doesn't really, unless there's times, but the reality is just treat people with kindness and respect all the time, and I don't know. I don't know if the karma thing is real or not. Like I don't have any like higher belief in some format like that, but I think that you keep putting out good energy, usually it works. I mean, 2 years on a bicycle, that's what I did, and it worked out fine for me. And I grew a lot from it. People treated me with a lot of kindness and respect along the way, and it still works today. Like, you know, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be situations, but if that outlier situation happens, and you know, I'm cooked tomorrow, and the time's up, like, at least I was being good to people. You know, like I think it's that simple. Like, live the way you want to live. Try not to, you know, like we all have regrets and we all have like little ones, but you learn from and you move from, you know. You keep going down that road because there's nothing else you can do.
Right, man.
Yeah,
and I resonate that in the degree, like, right now Declan and I are building a team of people around us that hopefully can help us move the needle in a way that wouldn't be possible if it was just Declan and I. And the really the only way that I know how to be a leader is to pour into someone, to show them that you're heard, that you're valued, and that I want you to get the most out of this opportunity. I struggle at times to give that pushback, to really stand up for like, okay, I really need this out of you to move the needle, because I think about them too much in that situation. But there are so many, like, there's been so much reciprocal altruism, as my boss would say, that has come from that, of me just being genuinely like transparent and authentic and like kind to them, where they are then pouring back into the business in a way that I didn't think possible, because we can't pay people in the way that they probably deserve to be paid because of where we're at. So our way is just like, give value, get value, give value, get value. And it's crazy how these things evolve. It's never in a timely fashion. It's more so just like habitual, in the moment type situations. 6 months down the line, then it works out, and someone will like reach out and be like, "Oh, that was really cool." And I have a great instance, like Cole Hersman from Hive Apparel, who we had on our show. I'm going to shout him out. I'm not sure if he's listening right now, but we had him on our show 2 years ago, and I just got off the phone with him about an hour ago, right before this conversation, and I want to start a merchandise line for Straight Candid. And I reached out to him because I know he's got a great production company up in Duluth that does screen printing and things that we might need. And I haven't talked to him in 2 years. And I called him on the phone and gave him the situation, and there couldn't have been more like on the same level, what we could, like, how we could help each other. It was just so genuine. Like, I want to help you, you want to help me, and we can like take this thing to the moon. And it's only because he said in the conversation, he's like, "Andrew, I just love how you guys tell stories. I love how you guys tell stories, and I need that. I need more of that in this world. So I'm going to help you in this situation." And I was like, holy shit. Like, I haven't talked to you in 2 years, and you still remember that conversation that we had sitting in our studio, and that's why you want to help me today. And I think that's pretty awesome. And I'm sitting here at 25 doing this every week, and it's hard to see it, because it's hard to see the value time and time again, because this is a daily grind, but it just comes back around, and it's pretty beautiful when it does. And we've been able, like the three of us have been able to see it in so many different situations. And we're sitting here on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock Central Time. Decky's fortunate enough to be 7 o'clock his time, or 6:45, and we're just generally having a conversation about what it is to live. And that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
Salud.
I wish I was sitting in a cooler chair. But salud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things too, where it's like it's cool to have these conversations, because they're like good reminders of the fact that like technology has your back to a certain degree. Like, obviously, if we were all sitting where Andrew's sitting, because like, hate to break the news to you, but I also have one of those chairs, and if you were in the studio with us, you would also have one of those couches. and you'd be able to sprawl
Yeah.
out there in the studio up there on the 3rd floor in Minneapolis. But and it's tough to say those moments of like what if, but you also just gotta like accept it for what it is and just understand like this is just a moment. This is just a moment in time, and it's like the genuine invite you threw out about Moab. It's like, well, though I'm
considering it.
I'm a chip and a putt from
come
Moab.
out. Seriously.
Yeah. When is it,
out.
by the way, just logistically?
October 6th, I think.
Oh, okay. So we got enough time
6th
on
through
that.
the 11th.
6th
Yeah,
to
and I'll have my buddy and I are gonna get it. I think we're gonna get 2 campsites at the place where it starts and finishes. And it's funny because like though you guys know about it, like going out there when we did, most people that are there are like ATVing and like mountain biking and stuff, and it was a blip on the radar. It's such a small thing. I mean, it's gotten bigger, and I don't know what the entry amount is, but of people, but it's a cool little spot. Like where we had our campsite, they had it was, it's like a commercial campsite, like RV park type thing. But they had a pool and a hot tub and showers and stuff. So for whatever the support crew is, or people who just want to be out there, because Moab is sweet, fun little bars, nice restaurants. I mean, it's like a dirty Sedona, is the way I think about it, which fits me a lot better because I don't know, I'm maybe a little dirty.
The dirtier the better, they say.
Yeah, I think so. But it's great. There's so much to do out there. There's tons of hiking and stuff. It's beautiful. So yeah, I mean, if you guys seriously come on out, like, and if you want to come out and pace for a while, or if you just want to come out and hang out, like there's going to be a group of goons,
Yeah, we'll fit right in.
Like us. Like
yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not worried about that. I would definitely like to challenge myself a little bit, suffer out there doing a little pace. I'll leave more of the actual pacing to Mark Dowdle again, bringing him up because I know he'll probably be listening in Texas like October 6th. I'm there, like whatever. But no, I think that, dude. I think it's just badass, and I think like Andrew said, there's always like these random reminders of like. Not only are there mental attributes or different life experiences that you have in your back pocket, but there's like physical people in your back pocket that never leave, and it happens because you just like genuinely impact others. You're being kind to them. You're just like giving them the time of day where it's like we're just genuinely interested in you and got a cool connection, and we set the time up because we wanted the opportunity. And I think that's just something badass. So, going off that, I guess, because we always ask this, and we're always just genuinely curious, like, what is in your back pocket? And I described Andrew described a physical person of Cole Ayersman, and we have talked about this mental attribute of like how you battle things when you're in tough situations. But like, take it how you want. What is a thing in your back pocket that you're using right now? Or that you remember, can recall upon, or something I guess in your back pocket. What would that be?
It's just something as simple as like I've told you guys, I worked my ass off to go to college. Didn't have a lot of money growing up, but a ton of love in my house. My mom and dad are incredible people, and I think that's like one of those things that just always sticks with you. Just the like love and care of people, and fortunately, as time has gone on, I've nurtured and catered incredible friendships. Like, I told you about my roommate Call, who stays with me, and he sticks around. He helps me with projects. We do stuff. Super awesome dude. My buddy Nate, who ended up bike touring with me and then ended up doing his own Latin America tour afterwards. I mean, I have my friend Paul and his wife Alexa, who is an ER doctor at Denver Health. Like, I get to hear her story still. She's unbelievable, and he is unreal. Like, one of the most capable people that I know. My brother Austin, who works for Google X, now he's doing other stuff. He's just doing everything. He's just the most intelligent person I've ever met in my life. I have like, and one of the most loving, and I have so many people in my life that are there for me when I need them, and I think they give me more than I can even provide for them. But my back pocket is full I think both of my back pockets are full. I can't be more grateful for the life that I have and for the people that I have in my life. You know, we talk about Tim and Emma, I talk about my buddy Andy, my family, my friends, and just this opportunity to hang out with you guys and like think about like the potential. Like Andrew, we should go running at Highland one of these days. Whether or not you've been running lately, we can do some challenges if that's what you're looking for. We can go do 20 miles of hill repeats, walk up, run down, whatever. But my life is overflowing with love and goodness. And when things are tough, because they always are, and we're talking about all these positive things that exist, there are so many roadblocks. There are so many speed bumps that we all run into, and to give credence to all of those things, I could have those conversations too, and the difficulties that I've experienced through like losing friends and losing people in my life. It reminds you those are losses, but reminders as to how much I have. So in my back pocket all the time, I have buddies, I have family, I have people that love me, that are going to be there for me if I need them. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, I think. Mm-hmm. Anyway, maybe it does.
Oh, that's a great way of looking at it. And and challenge accepted from the front of, we are going to be running around town. We're just going to be doing something. We're going to be challenging ourselves, and I'm going to be biking. I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to be tired, but I'm going to have a blast doing it. So
we'll run side by side. I don't need it. I have a buddy a few weeks ago. Little story. He is my friend Ryan. He's a sous chef at the Capitol Grill where I work, which I wasn't going to expose too much, but whatever. Because Ryan, dude's great, and his story. I got to know him years and years ago when he started, and he was a big boy. I mean, he's a tall guy, and he was pretty heavy, and he like just force of mind. I mean, the guy has been through his own stuff, like. But so he lost a ton of weight through like focus and putting in the time and setting up his schedule, getting into like yoga and working out in his own way. And so the other day, my buddy and I, who run our ultra distances or whatever, we're like, hey man, we're gonna do a marathon Monday because it was my birthday. I turned 37 on the 3rd of March, and we're like, Ryan, you should come out and run with us, because he'd been doing like 3-4 miles, and he had mentioned to me at one day, he's like, what should I plan on being like a goal for the year? And I'm like, dude, just do a marathon, October, do the Twin Cities if it happens. Otherwise, I'll go running with you. And he's like, all right, that's a lot. And I'm like, yeah, it is. He's like, all right, I'll do it. I'm like, sick, sweet. So he just committed to do a marathon. So I started telling people around the restaurant, and like, it's him. This is the guy. And so we're like, my buddy Chris and I were like, hey, Ryan, we're gonna go running, do the Monday marathon. Do you want to come out and run some miles with us? And he's like, yeah, I'll probably do like 5, 6, like. And so he showed up. We all met at Theodore Wirth, and it's just this daily thing. It was just a few weeks ago. So he shows up and he's like, hey, and we're like, 5 or 6. He's like, you know what? I'll do like 9. I'll do like 9 miles with you guys. And so we just ran, even pace. 9-10 minute miles, just kept it going. We ran Cedar Lake, Isles, kind of worked our way toward that Makaska, and I miscalculated, and then it was going to end up being more than 9 miles. And I was like, hey, you're pretty close to a half marathon. You might as well get a half marathon. And he's like, shit, yeah, I'm going to get a half marathon. And so we did like 14 miles, and we stopped back at the car. We all had snacks and water and stuff, and we're like, if you go out and do the rest of it with us, like, we're gonna get burgers and beers. And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And then he's like, yeah, let's just do it. And so he ran a marathon with us. We ended up doing like 28 miles or something. And off the couch, still had been doing the things, had the force of mind, and just did it. And then the next week, I was like, I'm gonna do it again. He came out, we did 28.5 miles the next week, and he fucking did it. It's like that. He's a badass. Ryan, badass, but it's just that kind of thing. Like, these people that can inspire you all the time in every different instance. It's not just these physical things that I'm talking about, but it's like, just how incredible someone can be in every aspect. Like I don't know. That was just a story I want to tell because I thought that was sick. Like just these little things, you know. My buddy Call, who bikes 70 miles, then he does 130 or 40 miles the next week. So he's like, oh, well, I was capable of that. I can do that, you know. Or like, you know, and it carries over. Like, you know, he's applying and thinking about the way he's going to work toward his next job. And I don't know. It's just shining our light, being inspirations, trying to be good people. And, you know, and it's changed my life, like having these people, like the difference, like you were talking about, like by loving on people or like pouring into people, you get so much more back from people when you do that. And you don't even do it for that reason. But when we all actually care for one another and treat each other with love, isn't that simple? Like the golden rule, turns out it works out all right. Like, you know, it doesn't always work out all right, but it does a lot of the time. And I'd rather just do that anyway, because I don't know, being a shithead sucks. Like, being the guy who's bitching and ruins a room sucks too, you know.
Totally. I think, dude, I think that's awesome. Like, I think it's such a pure, finite, just special energy that someone can give you by just being the best version of themselves. Like Ryan just like saying he can do it and does it and then some and then comes back and does it again. Like you're telling that story because it's just like it's fucking awesome. Like that, it's just inspiring. It's the coolest shit ever. Yeah. Like you want to say it because it's that cool, and it probably felt even better than how you're saying it, because I mean it fires me up, and like talking about Call doing the same thing in a different aspect. Those, dude, that's pure. That's pure bliss right there, man. Like there's really nothing that can replace that. That's not a cup of coffee. That's pure energy from another human that just transplanted it right into you. So like that's cool as shit, man. Like thanks for sharing that.
It's pushing people up, man.
Yeah,
it's pushing people up. It's the same thing. Like you have friends. You want them to be the best they can be. You want them to get that fucking job they want. You want them to make the right trades. You want them to fucking take that trip that they've been dreaming of forever. You know, you want them to have like shine their fucking light. We want everyone to do that.
Yeah.
But like when you're close to someone, you're just like, hey buddy, like, come on, man. Like you can do it. You can do it, man. Like
we all kind of need those types of people.
Or sweetie.
Honey, yeah. You gotta. You approach it differently with other people, right? I think.
And with friends, yeah.
Totally.
And friends, like I have even like I have exes, like, and I'm like push them, like, and we were first still friends or like, you know, girlfriends. Any of my friends, any of the people that I'm around in my life, I'm like, fuck yeah, like let's. Are you gonna go hiking? Like, how far did you want to go? You're gonna do that thing? Then yeah, do it. Just do it, and send me pictures. You know. Because you can, and you'll feel so good when you do it. Or you take that chance and do that interview that feels so nerve-wracking. Go do it.
There you go. Here we are.
Yeah.
It's that challenge aspect. It's that pushing yourself forward and accepting that challenge and being like, all right, I don't know really what's to come, but I am willing to take that leap and say yes. And I'd like to ask you, Matt, we want to say yes to someone inside your circle, someone that you think we should have on this show, because that's how the Back Pocket operates. Emma Sievers was awesome, and we thank her so much for challenging us to have you on the show. And that's just going to lead us to the next person. So is there anyone else you think would be a great fit for the Back Pocket?
There's so many people. I even wrote like a couple people down. I mean, like, and you guys talk to people from all different backgrounds. If you want to, so one person.
You can have them. You can text us later.
A multitude, yeah.
It doesn't really matter who you say. Yeah. This is a no pressure question, honestly.
Okay. Well, then I'll say. Well, yeah. We'll have conversations when we're running. So. My friend Nick Jones, he's a lighthouse. He can't not be a lighthouse all the time. Fly fisherman, guy's ridiculous. My brother Austin, who is a badass. Like he's master's in entomology, quit his PhD because he didn't like the way that Virginia Tech was working. But he is ridiculous. Like his mind is this. It is unreal. He is a person to talk to about anything, and he has the best store of memory you could possibly imagine, and a very interesting perspective. My friend Alexa, who is also an ER doctor at Denver Health. I mean, there's so many people out there. We'll have some conversations because there's and you guys have so many. We all have so many interesting people in our back pockets, don't we? Yes. You know, like that's the coolest thing about what you guys are doing. Is that like there are so many. As I was like, I took a run today beforehand, and then my roommate had started my sauna, which is right here. That is like I'm in my closet. Basically, I'm in my closet office, and I have a sauna that I bought at the beginning of the furlough because I didn't ever realize when I was going to be able to sit in a hot room with friends ever again. And I was like, I need a hot.
That's
and it's
pure.
Supposed to be healthy. It's so silly. Like this is the space it takes for me to get into my office because I bought this stupid thing, and it's awesome. I use it all the time.
It's badass, dude.
Thank you, Rhonda Patrick, from she was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Of course.
And it's the same one she had. I saw like a picture she posted once, and I was like, all right, well then, cool, I'll find one. But yeah, what you guys are doing is sick. Like my roommate is an incredibly interesting human being and what he is up to. And he's, a salmon fisherman and had been for years, and he's not going to go back. And the reasons why are interesting. We're all just trying to do stuff. My buddy Nate that came with me to Haiti. Like seriously, I asked him, he's such a cat. I met him doing valet years ago. He's a young guy. I can't age. Oh no. He's a little bit older than you guys, a couple of years. And I mentioned that I went to Puerto Rico once, and I flew in, and I was going to walk around the mainland. And I did. I started, and I burnt my feet, and I couldn't even wear my shoes, and I couldn't walk. I slept with a tarp, whatever. I walked 30 miles one day, slept behind a police station. I smoked some kind of plant. I can't remember what it was. I don't know. I felt really weird afterwards. And then I continued down the beach, and I walked by the beach the whole day, and I was continuing to put sunscreen on my feet, but they were so bad. They were like purple and burnt and like covered. It was almost like I had like bags under my skin. It was so bad. So I went to a fire station, and I asked them if I could stay, and they're like, yeah, cool. I'm like, I'm going to try to buy a bike at Walmart. And then I would crash here because I can't walk with these, and they laughed about it. They took pictures and laughed. But then I biked with a Walmart bike around Puerto Rico, and then I returned it when I was done because I bought a $65 piece of shit. It was so bad, and I had to put it together. They didn't have. I asked the auto department if I could use their tools to put it together, and I had it. There was a German guy that was with me that I met at the hostel the night I stayed. He's like, I want to come with you. He lasted a day on the bike, and then he returned his bike, and I was like, sick. That's a good idea. I'll finish this and then return my bike when I'm done. So I did, and I made it back to San Juan, returned it. So my buddy Nate did the same trip. Like a year later, I had mentioned this, and he's like, that's awesome. So he went and he did it. And then I was like, I want to go to Haiti, and I want to fly into Port-au-Prince, and it's going to be hard because everything that I could find about it, I didn't know anyone who had ever bike toured there. I don't know a lot of bicycle tourists. I just never. But I looked online, and I found one blog about somebody who got robbed their second day, and they took his bike and took his shit, and then he went home. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like, he had too nice of a bike. I'm going to go there. I'm going to make it work. So then I did. We got to Port-au-Prince. We walked around for a day, couldn't find anything. Stayed at a really bad hotel. Got drunk. And then the next day, we went and bought bikes from some kids in an alleyway. And we made our way through all, like, the 3 biggest cities in Haiti. And then we biked the Dominican and finished. And then a year later, he's done with all of his stuff. He rode from Minnesota up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. Hung out there for a while. He's salmon fished up with my roommate. Sent his bike to Washington, then he biked from Washington down to Panama, and now he's doing like medical device sales. But he's like just does stuff whenever he wants to. Just like he is true to himself. Very thoughtful creature. And when he came with me to Haiti, I was like, "Are you serious, man?" Like, gnarly. It was gnarly. It's the most underdeveloped country in the Western Hemisphere, but people were incredible, so amazing. We had one moment where we all jumped off. We hitchhiked a truck, and I didn't hitchhike on my trip down to Latin America, but I did here, and we were all standing on this mountainside, and there were like 7 dudes peeing on the side of the mountain, and we heard a scream, and there was a woman down below. We didn't know she was there, and her whole family, and they were looking at us, and she was shaking her hand, and she's like, "Ah, what are you doing?" And I don't speak French or Haitian French either. Like, so then he was laughing, and everybody was laughing, and we all just like stood there. So stupid. I think I had a Louis C.K. moment, and I didn't realize.
Dude, that's amazing. And that. What's his kid's name? Nate.
Yeah, Nate Stensland.
Nate.
Yep.
Andrew couldn't hold it, dude. You always hit the 2-hour moment in this podcast. Andrew just threw up in the chats, "I have to pee, ... BRB." What a pure moment.
Yeah, I see that.
What a pure moment. But dude, I think that's just like, those are just incredible moments. And I think it was so funny, when you said, "Oh yeah, now he does like medical device sales," and it's like, how many people at that medical device sale place just like look at him as like this ordinary average dude who kind of just does whatever? And it's like, you're never gonna unpack like these extraordinary moments unless you have the conversations with them and you're curious enough to know, or a guy who knows a guy who knows he did this. And it's like, that's the impetus of this podcast. Like, I don't really care who listens to it. It's like nothing's ever gonna replicate the feeling that Andrew and I get from this moment of just like putting this energy out and like following where the energy takes you. And it's just like so fun. Like, there's a reason we've done it for 300, and now you'll be the 308th podcast. It's awesome, so cool where it can take you. And I think that it's so hard to like tell people what we do. It's just like I'm riding this wave of just like human life and connections, and I think what's so cool about like meeting you over a Zoom call is like, sometimes you just kind of need to know the questions to ask, not even really know who the person is. And I think like Emma, I messaged her today and was like, "Hey, we're having Matt on today, like any cool things we should bring up?" And the first thing she said was the Moab 240. So I'm glad you kind of walked into that one. And she said, "Make sure you have like a 6-pack of beer next to you, because like the guy knows how to talk, and like you're gonna want to enjoy a beer. So definitely do that." And Andrew's coming back from the pee. Nice to know he had a nice 27-second piss. Andy, what I'm saying is like, sometimes the best part about like what we do is like, it's these ordinary average people at face value, but sometimes you just need to know the right questions or topics to bring up to really extract the extraordinary, because everyone really is at the end of the day. Like, we're not going into this conversation with Nate and be like, "Nate, tell me, dude, how is it selling medical devices?" It's like, no, Nate, it's like, "Hey, dude, we heard about some crazy shit about peeing off a rock outside of Haiti," and he's going to be like, "How did you guys know about that?" And it's like, well, we asked the right people. We came from a different energy source. So I guess at the end of the day, that's what I'm really getting at. Is like, it's just kind of fun to make it's more about the connection and building momentum and energy from the next person to the next, just because it creates these amazing conversations, man.
Yes, and that's it, Deck. And I was telling you this.
I'm going to the bathroom, actually.
Okay. Yeah, Matt, I was sharing with you.
I'm next.
I shared this with you right before the podcast, actually, when you called me, just to clear up some technological issues or things that we might face. And I said, like, it's hard to explain what the Backpocket does, but like we love just like unpacking instances that like bring this energy out of each individual that you didn't really expect. And it's just so enjoyable to sit here and just talk about life and share stories.
Absolutely.
Because there's not a lot of moments where you feel like you're able to share what you're doing because you feel like you're taking someone's time or something like that. And when you create that time, since that's what we're doing here, we created this space. Everyone feels comfortable to share what's happening in their life, and then Declan and I and you yourself are trying to come up with relatable moments to then create a space where we all can just like enjoy what each other are doing. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what kind of narrative that can come from it. It's the same. Like it's so interesting because, you know, what I find myself doing now, working in a restaurant, you know, small table sections, it's a fine dining place. But I start to learn these things about people, and like we were saying earlier, like you start to dig a little deeper, and people start to expose themselves a little bit more. Usually, it's because they decided to elect that wine that I recommended, and then they had a little more than they expected. Right. And then you're like, "Holy shit, you're interesting! Are you kidding me? Like I always just thought you were just this like super plain old dude, and now you're telling me about this shit, man. Like we should hang out. Like we've been coming here for years, and you did what? Like it's unbelievable. Like yeah, I mean I've even as of recent, like I was talking with a friend. She's like talking about like layers. She's like, oh, you're an interesting onion, you know, like, you know, I'm interesting to peel back more, and it is the thing with everyone that exists. It's everyone around you. I mean, but then you know, you're trying to find igniters, you know, or people that are going to be a little bit beyond the pale. But it's interesting that like even in that, what is so sick about what you guys are up to is that like it can be anyone, because people end up being interesting regardless of what they are like at their core. We've all experienced so much stuff like that over time. Like everybody has some stories, you know, like and if you can have like the, you know, this long format, they'll tell you something and you'll be like, what did you just say to me? Like, holy man, whether it's good or bad, but we all, like, you've been alive for 25 years, right? Like I've been alive for 37, and I've tried to avail myself to a lot of things and uncomfortable situations that end up breeding growth and change. And like what you guys are up to, people are just, we're animals. We're all just a bunch of critters wandering around, looking around, but we all have stories, and it's so interesting to hear the perspective of everyone around us. Like I think that's like why I did my bike tour that big bike tour in the first place, was because I was like, holy, I can experience what it is like to live in northern Mexico, central, southern. You know, it's unbelievable. Belize, you know, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, all these places, all are so different. All use a language differently. Like the Spanish language, interpreted in a different way, different words for different things, different words for the same things. You know, like chancho, marrano, puerco for like pig, like and like dialectical things that exist. Like in the U.S., like we have that too. Like soda, or you call it a pop, or you call it a Coke, or a bubbler. Like all these things, they all exist in every other language too. And then understanding the history and the depth of what those places look like and how they were, you know, what it was like before, pre-colonization and colonization and beyond. It's and then you get to meet a human being who now is living in this era, and they are living in whatever space, you know, raised by attorney and CEO, or raised by, you know, any level, whatever, it doesn't matter, like truck driver and woman who works at a title company who graduated the year before me, and what they ended up creating as a son. You know, it's awesome. It's awesome. Like what you guys are doing is awesome. You know, like that. And regardless of whether people encounter it, you're creating it. It's there, and people can find it, and that's super cool, I think, because it's a great space. I notice I even talk about the bubble with people when they're sitting at the restaurant during coronavirus, and I walk up and I'm like, how are you guys doing tonight? Like, you're dying here. It's kind of, you know, the whole spiel that you have to do, but it's this place where people can feel comfortable and exist in a time like today with social distancing and all this other stuff, but feel normal for a little bit, and I don't bring up anything about what exists on the periphery because it's all out there, sure, but regardless of your views, your political leanings, you're human beings. And that's another thing that's really tough about today is that the cancel culture, the Facebook, the Instagram, all the social media things that are divisive. What you guys are doing is a nice little thing because it creates unity. There's a thought that hey, you know what? You sit down and you talk with a person. When you sit down and you talk with someone, you can do that without entering the depths of what is happening in society today. And you can have and find ways to create constructive and functional conversation that is meaningful and worthwhile.
Totally.
And Backpocket.
What's so funny is going right off that is so my RV is on a farm and I have a landlord. His name's Doyle. He rocks. I got to interview him one of these days.
Does he rule? Wait.
Doyle just
Doyle rules?
I wish, dude. I wish he even knew it existed, to be honest. But it was I think it was a Sunday when this happened. But kind of all over the place on a Sunday, just trying to get things done. Anxiety, task lists, and all these different things. And I step outside my RV, and he's out there working on his house on the farm, and I just kind of took a seat and just kind of listened to some music and taking in some of the sun. And he came over and sat down in the chair next to me, and we just started talking. And then that was just a perfect reminder of oh, dude, why was I worrying about all that other stuff? This conversation that I'm having right now is way more worth my time than anything else I was doing or stressing about before. And then he asked me, because he thinks I'm an alien, right? I'm a 25-year-old dingus boy, and he's just about turned 60 in the 27th of June, he always tells me. So I know exactly when his birthday is. But anyways, he's about to turn 60. And
where are you gonna get him for his birthday?
Dude, good question. I gotta start thinking about that. And it's gonna be a thoughtful gift now that you brought it up.
Have you been on gunbroker.com before?
Gun broker?
Just joking.
No,
it's a farm. You said.
Yeah,
Get him a gun.
Dude, he's got. Yeah, I mean, he brought his. He was. My girlfriend was taking pictures with his pistol holster and his shotgun that he had under his back seat of his truck. This is how these people live, But based off that,
what millimeter it is, and just buy him some ammo. I'm kidding. All right, but seriously.
Totally,
he'd be happier in hell.
Right.
Expensive
he would be happy if I showed up. If I said, hey, Doyle, can you grab something out of the fridge in the back? Because that's where he keeps all of his, he says if you ever have, an important Amazon package or something delivered and you're not there, always just write in the notes, put it in the black fridge in the back of the barn. So, now I'm thinking about it, because all this man drinks is Bud Light, shit you not, guys outside in 90-degree weather as a damn near 6-year-old man just, pounding away on this house. And, he's got a beer with his koozie at all times of the day. It doesn't matter when. It's insane. So and he just genuinely wants to be paid in Bud Light too. So it's hey, you can take my truck, just pay me back in Bud Light as long as the 6-pack's on the passenger seat. I'm cool. So I would say, hey Doyle, hey, I have an important package. Can you grab it for me? And instead, I would put 2 30 racks of Bud Light in there. And so he would open that up and I would say happy birthday, dude, happy 60th. I think that would just be a great little antidote. But
yeah, performance beers they call them.
Yeah, exactly. But so anyways, the guy, so he's Declan, are you a liberal? He's I can tell. I think you might be a liberal by your Birkenstocks. I think you might be a liberal. And I was Doyle. I was Doyle. I don't know. I don't really affiliate, man. And it's not because I don't believe things or I do believe things. It's just if we start talking about that, then I'm gonna miss out on something that you actually are proud of, and it's something that it's just gonna ruin. It's not gonna ruin. It's not gonna. I'm not gonna gain anything from knowing whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I'm gonna miss out on the things that you actually care about, and I think that just goes back to what you're saying, man. There's so many more things that people have to offer than their political affiliation or what they believe in. I want to know what they really, really believe in or what they've done in their lives, and the different lessons they've learned, or the different experiences that they're passionate to tell me about outside of the passion that is maybe derived from some political background, you know?
Yeah, because we're getting too much news today than we ever got before. Like, people are just so, their brains are just full of all of this stuff that exists, and it's okay. Like, but you know, pre-1994, we didn't have the internet, so it was just TV and newscast, and now we have magic phones in our pockets, and it's overwhelming. And then that is the focus. Like, maybe you should focus on what it is that you need to do with yourself.
Right.
And to your point, like, hey, let's just kind of push that aside for a little bit. We can have the conversation if you want to, as to like morality if you want, but that kind of stuff, let's exit form for a second and realize we're human beings just existing, and what do we like to do, and where are you at. I think that's thoughtful.
Totally.
And of course it exists differently for everybody, and in this current climate it's difficult. And yeah, it ain't easy being alive.
Right. And we're all just so unique, and there's so many different one-offs that people are carrying, people that are struggling with. It's people that there's so many different things that people get excited about. It's crazy to put people in a box and just assume that they're that from one thing that they say, in the cancel culture or whatever it may be, and the people that hype people up because they did something special. Like, there's so much all else going on in that. And we even started this conversation with your journey from Wisconsin to Argentina. And I'm pretty sure we never even got past Mexico, because it doesn't matter. Like,
who cares?
I know that there's so much more there. However, there's so much more elsewhere as well. And I was like, okay, we talked about it for a while, but I also want to know what else has Matt got going on. And I know Declan's sitting in that same spot, and I couldn't be happier where we took this conversation. And that's the coolest part. It's it could go any direction, and there's substance there.
I'll tell you all about the priest in Capergana one day. I'll tell you, that was a story and a half. I'll tell you all about there's things and experiences, but it was beautiful and people were amazing. And that's kind of at the end of the day, like, yeah, we had a good time, and that was a good time too. That extended a fair amount of time. The priest experience wasn't the best time I ever had, but I had other ones that, you know, now looking back, it's hilarious. I'll tell you another time.
Right. Well,
anyway,
and I think what Andrew's getting at too, and I felt the same way, because we've had people who go on these journeys, and like you think as a podcaster, sometimes you try and paint the story, or like tie it back to like trying to draw interest or something. Like, these people hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and this podcast is about their hike on the Pacific Crest Trail. And it's like, gosh, you get into kind of these motions of like asking, oh, well, what happened next? Or what was like kind of happened on the next part of the journey? And like, then you finally get to the end, and then you ask a reflection question, and it's like, like you almost kind of forced it from our perspective, not necessarily the person telling the story, but like you get on this, if you just stay present with it, I guess is really what I'm saying, is if you just stay present with the conversation, follow where you go, you're going to get to a way cooler place anyways. And I think it's just kind of natural at the end of the day on how that all kind of comes together. But speaking to the presence of this conversation for what's now been probably 2 hours, I got to imagine, I would want to know, like, to stay and ask like a good present final question that we always wrap up with. It's like, from the time you woke up today to the time we're having this conversation now, which is at 9:23 your time, what have you learned today, Matt?
Quite a few things. I learned that I enjoy speaking with you fellas. That I think I learned that I'm gonna be running with Andrew. That you have another buddy who has done some 160 miles. Kidding me? That's sick.
Yeah.
Also, I'm excited. And I've learned that you guys are trying to make this into a full-time business, and I hope you do, because I think that's cool as heck. And whichever format you have to make it work, you'll find a way.
Right.
Just do it. Just do it. Yeah. make it happen. But, yeah, engineering is probably cool as heck, but if this is your passion, man, get after it.
Totally.
I've learned that it's interesting to do a podcast. I've never done this before, and it was really fun, and I would do it again. And I learned that I could budget time quite well beforehand. I was able to get in yoga, a run, and a sauna beforehand, which is really good.
Dude, good man.
And I've learned that you guys, a couple St. Thomas football players. That's an
Yeah, right.
Football's hard. Yeah.
Well, and I think really at the end of the day, you know, like I just really want to thank you just for being yourself, man, and just it was fun to just hear. It was just so fun to hear you navigate your thoughts based off the questions we asked, or like it was fun to hear like your long pauses, and we would just give you that space to just kind of mull over where you wanted to take a certain thought. And like, I mean, I just met you 2 hours ago, and it was just fun to like actually like feel your energy, understand a little bit of where you were trying to take something, and you're just like a genuinely good dude. And I what I really like too is like this idea that other people can now win because we had this conversation. Like Andrew's obviously gonna win with going on runs with you around Cedar or wherever, and like our buddy Mark Dowdle's gonna cross paths with you eventually, and that's gonna fire me up seeing a picture of you guys doing he does this thing called $5 5K to raise money for different organizations around the Twin Cities. So like, you know, I'm sure I will see $5 5K pictures of you guys all together. But like, again, it all comes.
I've got 5 on it. Does that mean I have to go half on a sack too, or is that just?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm just joking. I don't know. Yeah,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I got 5 on a 5K.
Yeah, no, dude, for sure.
We'll double down on that.
I can't help it.
But it really all just comes at like the price of life, man. And I think it's just cool as shit what we've been able to conjure today. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. It was really nice to meet the two of you, and I'm excited for you guys and what you got going on. And if there's any way I can be of support in any format, I mean, if it is finding another guest or if it's help in whatever way, just let me know.
Totally.
I'm around, and I'm not far from Andrew. And I will be in Arizona this year again, too. I'm sure a couple of times. So I plan on running out there. So maybe we have a beer in person at some point, Declan.
Yes, sir.
I'm stoked for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I look forward to it. Andrew, good to have you.
Yes, appreciate it. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. This was 2 hours that I will cherish for a while, and I'm excited to finally meet you in person in the coming weeks and share some steps together. So thanks for coming on the Back Pocket, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. This is I learned that it's okay to like. It feels a little uncomfortable to like talk about your story. Like, I'm happy to share it, but like I was nervous this whole week. Even just like, okay, yeah, like now I'm just gonna talk about myself. You guys had very thoughtful questions, and I'm glad we made it a conversation, because the true reality, like I said, I'm okay to talk about it, but it's going to be aired is something that's interesting to me. And like I'm an active introvert. I usually recharge on my own, but you guys certainly made me feel very comfortable, and it was really just hanging out with a couple of cool guys, you know. And
there you go.
And that's pretty sick. So you guys do a good job of asking questions, and I really enjoyed this experience. So thank you.
10-4, man.
Amen.
Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap here on the Back Pocket.